Hey, listen, carried concealed has a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things that we need to know to not only be an intelligent carrier, but also be one that can survive a real life altercation. So we carry concealed, we need to make sure we keep a lot of things in mind. Let's take it to the classroom real quick so we can start covering these right now.
I call this class Concealed Carry Considerations, right? Why? Because we're just kind of breaking the surface of what's going on here. We need to expose ourselves to some knowledge and some different concepts and what it means to carry a gun and the different ways to carry that to protect myself. Because a gun I own that just stays at home in a safe and I use to shoot on the range for fun every once in a while is a completely different concept than a gun I keep in the home with the intent to use it to protect myself or my family if something goes poorly. And then that again is completely different than a gun I intend to carry on my person and walk about with the intent to protect myself if something goes wrong or my family. And that again is a completely different concept than carrying a weapon and going, you know what? If some dude tries to rob the Circle K in front of me and is trying to hurt people, I'm gonna stop that. So what I would tell you is that right now, as you take in this knowledge, you need to start thinking about which one of those you wanna do. Keep it in the house just for giggles and being able to shoot on the weekends when you feel like it, much easier method of training, right? Because at that point, basic safety and knowledge is all I need. I'm not gonna make you John Wick. I like to lead with that, right? You will not be a super cool gunslinger from taking this class. That's just not how it works. I have been practicing dedicatedly with firearms for 25 years, probably. I like to consider myself decent with pistol and rifle. There really aren't any weapons I've been exposed to that I can't pick up and run. Why? Because I just spend a lot of time with them, right? I know how to use them. I tell you that because if you want to be able to fight with a gun, you can't take one Krav class and be able to fight in a fight with Krav, right? It takes years of dedicated practice before you would be in the position where you go, you know what, I probably could hold my own one-on-one against somebody my size. If it's the first time you shot a gun, do I suggest you try to pick it up and defend yourself with it? Probably not. It's probably gonna be more than a liability than it is anything else. However, if you got no other options, it's probably better than nothing, right? So all of these decisions that we're gonna go through and think about. In law enforcement, basic firearms handling and qualification is 80 hours of instruction that they receive in order to be at the basic level to carry that weapon. And then when they move on after that, they have to do continuing education and continuing practice with that. And that means putting yourself in crappy situations, crappy stances with a lot of stress so that you learn how to run that gun. That's no different than what you need to do here, right? That's why Krav teaches the way Krav teaches. It's a foundational class. Basic firearms, weapons handling and safety. We're gonna talk about the home and public concerns like I talked about earlier. We're gonna look at some state laws and some common places and ways gun owners get into trouble with a firearm, because when you are carrying a gun, you gotta know where you can carry that gun at and what the consequences are of carrying it into places. Are there places that I'm not supposed to carry a gun that I'm willing to take the risk of carrying a gun into? Sure, right? Because the risk of not having it to me is greater than the risk of what could happen if I'm found out, right? But those are things we have to weigh for ourselves. Because do I care after a bad guy attacks me and tries to kill my little boy that I had a gun where I shouldn't and I'm going to jail for 5 years for possessing a gun in a place that I shouldn't have, but my little boy's fine? I'll make that trade. I'm gonna do my best to provide you with a factual foundation of knowledge to start your journey into CCW. This is just gonna get started. Our objective here is to provide you with enough information to be successful to get your concealed carry permit. Would I tell you that this class is everything you need to start carrying a weapon in public? Absolutely not, right? It absolutely is not. Hours and hours and hours of training need to go into that. Am I saying don't carry the weapon in public just because you got this class? Absolutely not, right? You got to make decisions on your own. We talked about the 4 cardinal safety rules. I'm going to move through these a little bit quicker than I normally do because we already did these out on the range. These are the bullet points I want to hit. They apply in here. They apply on the street. They apply in your house. They apply in your bathroom. They apply at a convenience store. Always. There's never a time where those safety rules don't apply. They always apply. I will tell you that every unintentional discharge, negligent discharge, there's no such thing as accidental. Accidental means it couldn't have been avoided reasonably. The only way I would be willing to accept that is if you maintained your firearm as well as possible and some mechanical malfunction inside the firearm occurred which caused it to discharge when it shouldn't. I would give you accident on that, right? Otherwise, it was negligence. Always, always, always they apply. So loaded, always treat a weapon as if it's loaded. Never point a weapon at anything you aren't willing to kill or destroy. That's the laser rule. Our straight rule is finger straight along the frame, off of the trigger until 2 conditions are met. You are on target and have decided to fire. If you only get half of that rule right, it's difficult to hurt somebody, right? If you're following these rules, then you should be good. And then the last one is be sure of your target and what's beyond it. These are our 4 firearm safety rules. What I like to talk about with this is don't do something with unloaded weapons that you wouldn't do if it were loaded ever. That is pretty much going to save you from every single thing you could ever have a problem with firearms. When do the firearm safety rules save us? They save us when we're tired. They save us when we're sick. They save us in the dark. They save us when we're rushed. Those are when they save us. So let's get into the first stage of this. How do I store weapons at home? Right? What do I need to be doing at home? What's responsible? What's correct? How do I make this happen? What about the fact that I need the weapon accessible, but I still want it to be secure? Right? So we got to look at that. Responsible gun owners own a quality, heavy, standing safe that is firmly secured to the floor and or wall. No exceptions. If there are guns in your home and they ever stay in your home while you're not there, they need to be locked in a safe that is firmly secured to the floor or wall so that it just can't be ripped out and taken away. Most safes are cracked by thieves because they show up at your house with a dolly, put the safe on the dolly, roll it out, put it in the pickup truck and drive away. And then they have days to open that up and steal all your stuff. That is the vast majority of ways that guns are stolen out of safes. Very, very few safes are cracked in home and then have stuff stolen out of them. Period. Period, that's it. Quality, safe, heavy, standing, bolted down, absolute must, absolute must. Only exception would be I only own 1 gun, it's always on me. Move into that. Now I take the gun out and I'm doing stuff and then I get to a door and there's a sign that says no guns allowed. Where's the gun go? My pretty much only choice is to walk it back to my car or don't patron that business, right? For me, I just won't patron the business. Well, what if I go put it in my car? Most guns are stolen out of cars. So we go back to this slide. Get a car safe. They are about that big. They slide under your seat. A metal cable secures inside the safe and then can secure around the frame of your seat. Anybody who wants that is gonna have to remove your seat or bring bolt cutters just to get the safe out of the car. And then if you bolted that safe inside the car too, that helps you out even more. They're very difficult to access that way. And it doesn't have to be huge, 14 gauge steel cabinet locker thing kind of thing in there. Because think about this. Your weapon gets stolen, it makes you sad. Your weapon gets stolen and 2 years later you get a phone call from the FBI saying, hey, do you remember this gun? Yeah, it killed 3 people yesterday. Well, poop. You gotta secure your stuff. You gotta secure your stuff. So let's talk about ways I can do this. So we can do the simple stuff, right? We talked about safes. What if I wanna put it in a closet? Okay, I could see that, right? So what would I do? If I were gonna put it in a closet, I'm gonna remove the closet door. Why? It's an interior door, right? And I'm gonna purchase an exterior door for that closet door size. Why? Because now it's solid, right? And I'm gonna put locking stuff on it that's for the external side of my house, right? And then, to make it even more, these hinges, I'm gonna take those little 1/2-inch screws out and I'm gonna put 3-inch drywall screws in all of these with the deadbolt and the lock. And I'm gonna break the head off of a screw. A lot of hinges will come with this or you can drill it in. I'm gonna break the head off of the screw so that when it closes, that head goes in that. Why? Because it reinforces the hinge against being kicked in. You can do this on your regular house doors too. Because it's gonna be easier to go through the wall than to go through that door, right? That's secure. I can see that, right? Is it as secure as a giant metal safe? No. You have a giant metal safe in the closet with that setup? Right? It's pretty secure right there. Cable locks. So most people do a cable lock this way where they run the cable lock through the magazine port and then out the ejection port. This is not a safe way to cable lock a gun. You can still put a round in the chamber. And then when you let the slide go, the cable lock could hit the primer and fire the gun. The proper way to use the cable is to go through the barrel. Run it out the ejection port through the barrel. Now you can put a magazine in the gun, but there's no way to get those rounds into it. It won't load, right? That is the safest way to use a cable lock on it. You also have these trigger guard locks. I am not a huge fan of a trigger guard lock, and the reason is most people like to store it loaded with something going through the trigger guard that has a key or a combo, and now you're saying under stress, you have a loaded gun that's cocked and ready to fire, and you're trying to fiddle with its trigger guard and get this thing off. All right. Could it work? Sure. Not my favorite way to do that. People in your home. You got your spouse, your significant other, kids, your roommate, guests, workers, right? All those different people can be in your home. Where's the gun? How secure is it? How well are those people being watched, right? What about when I go to work and I left the weapon somewhere accessible for my wife and then she's gonna have friends over? Well, depending on those friends, that gun's either gonna get locked up or it's gonna stay where it is if we know those friends and know they're fine. Now they're bringing their kids over, the rules change again, right? I have to make changes to what's going on. I can't have one decision on where this gun goes because it's probably not gonna work, right? I'm probably gonna have multiple plans on how to store this gun under certain conditions. If you have a roommate or your spouse or whatever and they just don't like guns or stuff, you have two options. You can just lock it up or you can educate. I would tell you that both are the better way, right? I lock it up, you can't get to it, done, right? But now it's a black box, right? Now it's the mystery. When I was growing up, my parents had weapons in the house. And the rule with the guns were ask. If you ask to see the gun, I will stop whatever I'm doing within reason. They pulled it out, let us see it, let us handle it, cleared it, right? Even let us pull the trigger. Until what? Our curiosity was sated, right? It's not a black box anymore. It's not a mystery. There's no secretism to it. It's not interesting that way anymore, right? And what else is in it? It's not scary. So when I was at a friend's house, and this happened, and he pulled out his gun that his dad has, my brain went, it's probably not good. See you tomorrow. And I left, right? I was 10-ish. I left, walked outside. It's like a half a mile to my house. It's 108. And him pulling out that gun didn't scare me. It scared me that he had one, but it didn't scare me into the point where I couldn't think anymore and find out the right thing to do, right? Because education is important. My buddy has 8 kids. I would put a gun in any one of their hands. They range in ages from like 2 to 18. I would hand any one of them a loaded weapon with no qualms whatsoever. I would not obviously hand a 2-year-old a loaded gun, but I'm not worried about it. Why? He does a lot of teaching with them, a lot of training, a lot of educating with them. They're around guns all the time, right? Conversely, there are some police officers that I've trained that if I could get out of giving them a gun, I would. My nephew, I think he just turned 28-ish. I wouldn't leave a butter knife on the counter when he's home. Why? Because something bad's gonna happen. Kid is just, no, he's just not there. Right? My kid's ready to start shooting at 5. We're gonna go have a range date here in another month or so, right? It's not even his maturity level, it's that he just doesn't think through stuff and pay attention with some common sense to get to where he's going. And I know that it's just a matter of time before he has a question, turns around and shoots me in the face. So people ask me a lot, and that's why I digress to this, how old should they be? It's really a parent call. You gotta pick that time when they start to understand what rules are and show a cognitive ability to start following them, right? And then they can start learning about this stuff. And I would not leave my child unsupervised with a gun, but I want to know that if that happens, he'll make the right decisions. Because if I owe you a safe training environment, I owe him a safe home, right? He shouldn't be in danger because of something that I'm doing, right? I don't leave my power tools out where he can get to them. I don't leave a drill with a bit in it next to his toys. Why? Because it's not a good idea. Experience and maturity are the big things. What about guns into your home? Do you allow your guests to be armed? Do you even ask? Do you even know? Right? These are things you might want to realize. I have friends that I don't ask. Why? Because I trust them, right? I know they're good to go. I have other folks that I know carry, and I'm like, hey, dude, I need you to leave your gun in your car. I thought you wouldn't disarm people. I don't disarm responsible people. The vast majority of gun deaths that happen are, generally speaking, really tied between self-defense and accidents. But what happens more than that is illegal stuff, right? The odds of you getting hurt accidentally by a weapon in your house are really low, especially depending on how you deal with it, right? I would tell you that the chances of an unintentional discharge in my home, probably close to 0. Nothing's ever 0, right? Probably close to 0. Why? Because we follow the rules. We're gonna do it that way every time. I don't care what you're thinking, that's just how we're gonna do it because that's the way that keeps everybody safe. Bottom line is you gotta make your decisions based on facts and what's right with you. So that's what I always tell people, informed decision. If you're knowledgeable on the subject, that's a good thing, right? That's how you get out of here, because we don't want stuff to happen from fear. All right, switch gears here and talk about the break-in. Someone breaks into your home, right? You don't have to answer the question. What's your plan? If you're currently going, what would I do? Well, that's a pretty good indicator that you need a better plan, right? I'm gonna get my gun and shoot them. That's not a good plan either, right? Oh, I'm gonna protect my family. It's a good concept, but it's not a good plan, right? A plan is different, right? It's one thing for me to tell my kid that if there's a fire, I want him to run out away from the fire and find one of us. It's another thing for me to give him specific instructions on how to do that and set up different plans by which he could follow that, and then move to a point where we practice the fire drill and he knows how to get out. So things you should consider. Where's your family gonna go? Because you don't need any more unknowns. I hear a bump in the night and I'm gonna go investigate it. Okay, was that bump the cat? Was it the dog? Was it my wife getting a drink of water? Is my kid out of bed for some reason, right? Probably don't wanna screw my gun in my wife's face at 2 in the morning, right? Probably not the best plan I could have, right? So my wife knows, if we hear a bump in the night, her only job is to get to the boy. She gets to where he is, and then she has a place that she goes depending on where she finds him. And my job is to destroy whatever's threatening my family. And then she knows that no matter what she hears, she stays locked in that room with the gun trained on the door, and unless I say it's me, or unless the police identify her while she's on 911 and the dispatcher confirms that's the officer, shoot whoever comes through that door. That's the plan. The plan modifies if we're all in the same room when somebody breaks in. I don't really care about my TV, right? I'll make some dumb decisions for my dog, like I'll risk a little to save my dog. She's family, right? But if we're all safe in a room already, you guys get behind me, lock it down. If it comes through that door, it dies, right? I don't need to go find it right now because none of my family's at risk now. It's different in the other situation, right? So these are the plans I need to be thinking about when I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do with the weapon in the home. The other issue is, where's the most likely place someone's gonna break into your house and that you're gonna find them? And then you get into a gunfight with them, where do the bullets that miss from you go? Because if your kid's room is the backdrop, it's probably not a good wall, right? So what do I do to mitigate that? Bookshelves. The kid's room is lined with bookshelves. The one around his room is lined with bookshelves because they'll eat those rounds for me, right? It's not gonna take sustained fire, right? But they're gonna eat the errant round for me, right? Easy. We own a lot of books. I like to read. It was easy, right? You gotta think of something that's gonna help you in making that happen.